Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. We've got a few folks still joining the call, so I'll give folks just 30 more seconds to join. All right. Well, thank you all again for joining us. My name is Channing Great. I just wanted to start off here with a few housekeeping items before we get started. One, this call is being recorded. Following the event today, we'll make sure all attendees have links to both the recording as well as all of the materials that we talked about today. For members of the media, you all will be receiving a press release as well. And we do expect to have time for questions for our panelists. I'll be moderating those at the end. In the meantime, the chat box is also open if you have any questions or technical issues. So with that, I'm very honored to turn the call over to the President and CEO of United We, Wendy Doyle. Wendy?
Thank you, Channing. And thank you all for joining us today to discuss this important topic. I'm delighted that we have Representative Daniel Pay and Representative Trish Ranson here today, as well as Joe Dorman, Chief Executive Officer of the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy. But first, I'll give a little bit of background about who we are. United We is a nonprofit, nonpartisan think and do tank focused on elevating women's labor force participation to strengthen our economy. At United We believe one of the fastest and most practical ways to grow the economy is by focusing on the workforce and making it easier for people to participate fully in work. Research from McKinsey and Company shows the scale of the opportunity, estimating that achieving the full economic potential of women in work could add $2.1 trillion to the United States GDP. Across the country and here in Oklahoma, employers and families are feeling the strain of workforce shortages. Women are a critical part of the solution, yet too many barriers exist that limit their ability to stay in the workforce. One of the most significant barriers is caregiving, whether that be the lack of affordable, accessible childcare or elder care, which forces many capable, willing Oklahoma workers to either cut back on hours or leave the workforce altogether. Our research shows consistently that childcare gaps are one of the top reasons women leave the workforce. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce estimates that states lose billions of dollars annually due to breakdowns in childcare access. So while this crisis disproportionately affects women, its consequences impact all of us, and we all have a role to play in solving it. Childcare has been called a textbook example of a broken market, and it's easy to understand why. With the sky-high costs for families, low wages for childcare workers, and simply not enough supply to meet the demand of childcare needs. Our Status of Women in Oklahoma study found that the average cost of childcare in Oklahoma is more expensive than a year of in-state tuition at a four-year public college. And 50% of Oklahoma counties have more than two children on a waiting list for every one licensed childcare slot available. As you can see on this map, this challenge is especially acute in rural areas of the state, many of which are considered childcare deserts. Last year, United We conducted an in-depth study about the drivers of childcare scarcity in Oklahoma. It was both a quantitative and a qualitative research report. We found wide variations in zoning, health, and permit requirements, strained staff capacity, high turnover, and unclear processes at the Department of Human Services. Regulatory fragmentation, with 19 early childhood programs being delivered by 5 different agencies, all of which contributes to delays and barriers for childcare providers and high costs and frustration for Oklahoma families. But we don't just want to study this problem, we want to solve it. Our research study included a slate of actionable recommendations for policymakers, ranging from streamlining licensing processes and simplifying requirements to providing additional financial support and incentives to childcare providers. One step that a growing number of states are implementing is a centralized governance structure for early childhood services. The idea is that there is a one-stop shop that can help improve communication, enhance accountability, and cut down on overlapping and duplication of requirements. By cutting unnecessary red tape, we can help providers focus on what they do best, caring for and educating our children during the most critical stage of their development. Childcare isn't optional. It's an essential infrastructure, just as important to our economy as roads, bridges, and broadband access. And our laws and policies should reflect that. That's why I'm so delighted to have Representative Trish Ranson here with us, who has been a champion for this issue in the legislature. Last year, Representative Ranson conducted an interim study on the creation of an Office of Early Childhood, and this year has introduced House Bill 1979, which would establish a task force to study and recommend ways to create a more effective and efficient governance structure for early childhood programs in Oklahoma. Welcome, Representative Ranson, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you for this opportunity to come and talk about this very important topic to our families in Oklahoma. House Bill 1979 grew out of the report from LOFT, that is the Oklahoma Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency. They did a study back in 2019 in regards to early childhood school readiness. And in that study, they talked about how what you just said, we have 19 different programs in 5 different agencies, that if we were able to consolidate all of them under one roof, that we would actually be able to reduce redundancies. We could actually take that money and put it back into services for our families. And so I took that finding and I said, okay, well, let's do it. So the House Bill 1979 creates a task force, and that task force has 17 different members, and they are all agency heads from all of our 5 different agencies, all the different programs, advocates, pediatricians, all of this, because it's really looking at the whole child. We need to make sure that we are focusing our investment in children's health, in their education, and in their care. And so when it comes to what we see in the future, we're looking at those 24 other states who have done this and the efficiencies they've found and the gains they've made. Because if every dollar that we invest in early childhood, that birth through 5, we get $16 to $17 in return over their lifespan. And that is something that is a good investment. It's a good investment for the children. It's a good investment for their families. It's a good investment for our communities. And it's certainly a good investment for the state of Oklahoma. So the interim that I did this last interim was very enlightening. The task force is based to say, okay, let's go out into the communities and let's find out what is the concerns, what are the needs, and then how do we cater all of that, and how do we carve out the different programs and the different departments and the agencies and put it all under one roof. And so I'm really looking forward to presenting this bill in committee this session, and I'm really looking forward to answering any more questions that you have about it and garnering support, because I think that this is a long-term solution to some of our problems that we are facing now. We have short-term issues that we need to address right now, absolutely, especially in care, but we need to make sure that we're looking in the long term, because we need to make sure that our 3rd graders are ready for their reading sufficiency tests. We need to make sure that they're ready for education in the school environment. We want to make sure that they are healthy and well cared for. So I look forward to hearing more, and thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, Representative Ranson, for your leadership, for bringing this bill forward, and for all that you do for women and Oklahoma families. This is a bipartisan issue, and that's why we're also honored to be joined by Representative Daniel Pay. Representative Pay, thank you for joining us, and we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Wendy, and the whole team at United. We appreciate the opportunity to speak on a very important issue. Here in a few hours, we're going to have the budget hearing for DHS, where we get to ask questions and get to the bottom of what their needs are heading into the next fiscal year. I look forward to that conversation and look forward to the questions from my colleagues. I wholeheartedly agree with the case that Representative Ranson laid out, that this is a long-term investment we can make for the state of Oklahoma. Investing in childcare means investing in our workforce. And I can tell you that many of my friends are going through a situation right now where they have to choose between working a high quality, high paying job and choosing to take care of their kids. And that's happening all across the country. And I worry as that trend continues on, where we're going to be in the next 10, 20 years if we do nothing. And so I'm hopeful that we can bring people together on both sides of the aisle, both sides of the rotunda, and try to wrap our heads around what can we do when it comes to childcare in Oklahoma. There's tremendous need, and we got to make sure we're supporting everyone involved in the system. And so long as we remember that this is a truly a workforce development issue that can pay dividends for us and the economy, I think we'll be heading in the right direction. So look forward to working with Representative Ranson and the rest of my colleagues as we begin session here in just a few days. Hard to believe, but we're going to be ready to hit the ground running come Monday, February the 2nd.
Thank you, Representative Pay, for your leadership and service and for being a champion of childcare. Finally, we're thrilled to have Joe Dorman with us. Joe is the CEO of the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, which is a statewide network that provides a voice for the needs of children and youth in Oklahoma, particularly those in the state's care and those growing up amid poverty, violence, abuse, and neglect. Joe, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your perspective. We'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Wendy. OICA has enjoyed working with United We through the years on the different projects that we've taken on here in Oklahoma. So thank you for your leadership on this. And we certainly want to thank Representatives Ranson and Pay for taking on this important task. Historically, Oklahoma has divided up many of our services between multiple agencies, and that has caused confusion for individuals. As a former lawmaker, I would have people contact my office looking for ways to try and get benefits and services for their children. Representative Pay touched on childcare, and that's certainly one of the most important topics that we have at the forefront this year. But there are many different youth serving programs that would see a benefit of being under one roof together. And it's not been done because it's an enormous task. And truly, the first step in this is creating a task force to look at this. For those that are paying attention to the news, Governor Stitt issued a statement yesterday calling for an assessment of entitlement programs and social service programs. This falls right in line with that request because it certainly would help with streamlining bureaucracy and finding a way to improve that delivery of services. We certainly applaud this effort. We look forward to this. We look forward to working with all individuals who are interested in assessing this and hopefully making this a reality in the very near future, because I truly do believe this would be in the best interests of Oklahoma's children and families to have all of these services located together under one roof and deliver what is needed for our families.
Thank you, Joe, for your leadership, all that you do for Oklahoma children and families, and for being with us today. Before we open it up to questions, I want to say that we know this is a difficult time for childcare providers with uncertainty around state and federal funding and workforce shortages exacerbating the challenges of businesses that already operate on razor-thin margins. These challenges underscore the importance of having clear lines of accountability that we've discussed today, centralized decision-making, and stronger overall governance. There's no magic wand. There's no silver bullet to fixing our childcare economy. But the bipartisan support for this bill demonstrates that Oklahoma legislators recognize the importance of caregiving and are ready to embrace common sense solutions to make childcare more affordable and accessible for all. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Channing, to take a few questions.
Thanks, Wendy. So if folks have questions, you can raise your hand identify yourself and the organization that you're with. Again, you can also use the chat box if that's easier. Questions for our panel? Well, if folks have no questions, that's okay. This is not the last time you will hear from us, and we're also very easy to reach. Okay, we do have a question from Emma, Emma Murphy at Oklahoma Voice. Thank you, Emma. She'd like Representatives Pay and Ranson to talk about any other child care legislation that may come up this session. So I will leave it to you all in terms of who wants to take that first.
Thank you for the question, Emma. Short answer is yes. In fact, Vice Chair Guys and I were on a call with DHS yesterday, and I do recall some bills from members, including Representative Schreiber, on this issue. And she has been a tremendous leader when it comes to making sure that we're prioritizing the issue of childcare. And so the teacher recruitment and retention program that we passed last year, we want to make sure that's fully funded heading into 2026. So be on the lookout for those types of bills.
Great question. We also have a question from Tammy and Janelle. Tammy and
Yes,
Janelle.
the 5 departments.
Mhm.
Yes, I see that too. The 5 departments that are mentioned, we have the DHS, obviously, we have the Department of Health, we have Department of Commerce is where our Head Start is housed under, public instruction, and the Oklahoma Health Care Authority.
Thank you, Representative. And Kitty Asbury has her hand raised, and she also put the question in the chat. Thank you. When will the task force be established? And Representative, maybe speak to if this bill does pass, when we could expect to see a report or additional information.
Absolutely. So the bill would, if passed, would go into effect in November of 2026. The task force will convene in that year. A report is due 2027, as well as legislation for the 2028 session. So it's a little bit over a year, but this, as Joe Dorman said, this is big. And so big changes cause for more time to make sure that we're doing it right, and we're having all of the community conversations as well as hearing from all of those stakeholders around the table.
Great question. Carly Putnam has a question about, and I know we referred to this in a general way, but it's a really important question. So I'll pose it to the panel. Many child care providers are struggling to keep their doors open. What actions can the legislature take to help keep those critical services above water?
I can take that, Channing. And so that's exactly what we're going to be discussing this afternoon with DHS. I intend to make sure that is a focal point for budget discussions. But certainly we have to take a holistic perspective on what it takes to make sure we're supporting our child care facilities. I've heard from a number in Lawton and frankly across the state who are having challenges right now. But it is my personal opinion that we should do what we can do to make sure that they are fully supported as much as possible, given the budget realities for this session.
Really, really important questions. Brianna Ramos has a question about, which is a great segue to what you just talked about. What can parents and the general public do to rally support for this bill?
Well, I would say find out who your state representative is and who your senator is, and give them a call or email them. It's easy to find. You can go to okhouse.gov. You can look up your representative. There's Senate page. You can go over to the Senate page and find your senator. And so I would do that. and just say, hey, have you looked at House Bill 1979? Would really appreciate your support.
And I want to add on, our advocacy day is March 10th at the Capitol. I would encourage anybody who can take the day off, come out and visit with lawmakers, look them square in the eye, and ask them to support this, because there's no better form of communication than person to person.
Absolutely. All right, it looks like we have time for a couple more questions, and we have one from Austin. Uh, They'd like someone to speak a little more to the effects this issue has on young people thinking twice about having families when they grow older. Obviously, this is a workforce issue, but it's also a family issue. So anyone would like to speak to that?
I can take that one. So, Austin, you're absolutely correct. It is a workforce issue. And the other demographic trend is that baby boomers are retiring every day. And so we're having an aging population trend as well, in addition to not many people entering the workforce as historically has been the case. So our birth rates are lower compared to 20, 30 years ago. And that's a trend not just in the United States, but all over the world. It's very acute in South Korea and Japan. So I am personally concerned about those demographic lines. And that's why, as policymakers, we need to make sure that we are promoting and passing pro-family quality of life policies, whether it is childcare or access to early childhood education, whatever the case may be. We have to take it comprehensively in order to make sure that if someone wants to have a family, that they feel supported, that the resources are there for them to be successful. With this current trend line, if inaction is the ultimate choice, we're not going to be in a very good situation down the line. So I'm committed. I know Representative Ranson and many of our colleagues are committed to trying to work on pro-family pieces of legislation this session and in the years to come.
Thank you, Representative. This is a very engaged audience. We have a very informed audience, and I love to see that. Jennifer has a question about which is the priority right now for Oklahoma? What is the most dire need? Supply, additional facilities, or affordability? I expect that some of our panelists might say they go hand in hand, but I'm interested to see if anybody wants to chime in on that.
I would say so, because the more supply that you have, the cheaper it becomes. And so, yeah, I think we're looking as a mother of two children and remembering looking for childcare when they were young. It's a hard decision to make, because you are trusting your most valuable assets, your family members, into the care of others. And so trying to find not only what is at the level of care that you are expecting, but also the ability to afford that type of care. And this is something that I think government can have a help in. I mean, we've talked about the subsidies, and where we make sure that we can kind of help subsidize. I know that DHS is asking for extra money. So this afternoon, it would be interesting to see how they would provide that money to help with the affordability of childcare. But we do have to look at the overall model of childcare, and just how do we make it work? How do we keep our childcare providers in business? Because we need them. We need all types of childcare, from in-home to more institutional. We need all of it. So how do we help with that?
That's a good segue to a question from Jillian Taylor about that DHS budget request, part of which is, she says, for recruitment and retention. And so her question is, do we have any sense for what the 57 million DHS is requesting for childcare subsidies be used for?
I could take that question. And so thank you, Jillian. And, that appropriation request is about the $5 per day childcare subsidy that has been present since the pandemic. Right now, it's being phased out throughout the year, but if we want to bring it back, that is what the cost would be. And the income eligibility is being reduced from 85% down to 55% as currently proposed. So that's also part of the funding question there. So we'll have that discussion again here after lunch in a few hours.
Very, very timely question. So we're just about out of time, but I did want to just note the comments from Judy in the chat because, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Wendy, to respond to these and then close us out because they really connect with exactly what United We's research has found related to the burdens and licensing requirements and all of the fragmentation that causes uh, challenges. So, Wendy, maybe you want to speak to that and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. Thank you, Channing. And thank you for the question and comments. And this is something United We has investigated. We've done a national research study looking at every state. And Oklahoma is not uncommon that there are licensing regulations, city, county, state level. And that would be an objective of the task force and, again, providing purpose to streamlining and organizing so that some of the issues that are happening more at a local level can be addressed. Waving a magic wand in the future, perhaps we could envision where the state licensing regulations just apply at all levels of government. We know that's a long marathon, but something to work toward. But again, we've got data that we have focused on in our research report to highlight this. So you're not alone. But it's going to take some time. And I think a good step forward is with the creation of the task force and perhaps the Office of Early Childhood. With that, I want to thank our panelists today, Representative Ranson, Representative Pay, Joe Dorman. Thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of this, for your leadership. Thank you all for joining us. Again, a recording of today's event will be distributed. If you have follow-up questions or we didn't get to your question today, you can connect with us online. And members of the media feel comfortable in reaching out to an email that is comms@united-we.org. Thank you all again for joining us and have a wonderful rest of the week. Most importantly, stay warm.